Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Well, what a fun weekend it was, Miss Wendy.
Oh, my goodness.
We did. Okay, so everybody out
Indeed.
there in podcast land, we had a whole week in the recording studio where we're working on some covers. We'll tell you all about when we release those. That'll be a fun thing for later this month.
Yeah, interesting, different.
But then we got to go up north, Wisconsin, which is, it's the best time to go up north in Wisconsin. August, beautiful weather. Everybody from Chicago on vacation and us.
It was incredible. And this time of year, the woods and the lakes are beautiful. The rivers are beautiful. Everything.
Yep, but that's why we're sounding a little rough today because we played all night Friday and all night Saturday night. And that's great, you know, but...
That's right.
So...
Doing what we love. So
yep.
Last week, 3 days in the recording studio, followed by, the marathon weekend of performing.
And that's why we sound like a couple of teenagers today. Like... It's Greg and Marsha Brady just talking about, can I borrow the car?
But the good news is you did the interview prior to us losing our voices. So,
yes. So
the whole episode does not sound like this. So if it's bothersome to you, don't worry. We'll be done with the intro shortly here.
But it's fun. So Mary Marshall, the Paranormal MD, who we interviewed this week, cool lady, met her at the Chicago Ghost Convention, Dark Shores, last October. And... she's been working with a good friend of the podcast, Jay Bachochin.
Hey, the Bigfoot guy.
Yeah, from WPI, Hunts the Truth and Wisconsin Paranormal Investigations, WPIHuntsTheTruth.com, and our good friend Jay. And they've got a DVD coming out later this month. And she goes into the weird stuff that they found in the Kettle Moraine in Wisconsin.
This is exciting because I love the Wisconsin stuff.
Yes, I do too. Right. And I get excited because the Kettle Moraine was practically... in my backyard growing up. And my dad used to run races there, and that's where we would go on hikes and things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
So the idea that there's weirdness in there, it makes me excited.
That's right. Because I've been training and doing a lot of running.
Mm-hmm.
I've been running all around different parts of Wisconsin that I haven't been to before.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting, and I could definitely see where some of those remote forested areas could be homes of strange things lurking.
Well, and it's cool too because she does connect it to, strange lights and more than just Bigfoot, like a Bigfoot living in the Kettle Moraine, like in a cave or something. It connects to other strangeness associated with Bigfoot sightings and when you hear things and stuff. So that's what their DVD, Into the Woods, not to be confused with the musical, the Stephen Sondheim Into the Woods. But that'll be coming out. And she talks all about that. And she talks about her original paranormal experiences that got her into this in the first place. And so she's from a suburb of Chicago, Hoffman Estates.
Oh, good old Hoffman Estates.
Yeah, we pass it every time we're coming down to play in Chicago. And we just have good memories. We knew a guy named Hoffman from Hoffman Estates. And we used to play with his punk band. And what was the name of that? Was it Sloppy Seconds was the name of the punk band?
Shooting Blanks.
Shooting Blanks was the name of the punk band. Oh man, and they were great. They used to have little LED lights on stage with funny sayings while they were playing. Yeah. And he was a character. No, he didn't make it, did he? I thought he made it to. There was a TV show called Average Joe, which was about like
The Bachelor, kind of, right?
It was like The Bachelor, but not TV kind of star looking people or more.
Yeah, like everyday guys.
Right, average Joes.
Yeah.
Kind of the Bachelorette kind of deal. And he was almost on the show. And I remember he sent a secret email. He's like, I've got big news for everybody.
Oh.
But we did have a friend on Average Joe that made it to the Final Four. And anyway, we'll have to talk to him about that sometime. But Mary Marshall, a lot of fun, really interesting person. And she's been running her own podcast/radio show for a long time called The Paranormal MD.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that meant she was a doctor.
Yeah, that's what I would assume as well.
Right. That's because I was prescription shopping and I was asking her, I'm like, what can you do for me? No, I didn't.
No, I was thinking of like Doogie Howser, MD.
Yeah.
When you hear that, you think doctor.
MD was her nickname.
Aha.
So Paranormal MD. So she's not playing doctor or anything like that.
Okay. All right. She doesn't have patients that are ghosts.
No, but she does do a lot of cool stuff in setting up parapsychology and paranormal themed classes at local universities and
cool.
community colleges and stuff like that. So she's doing what she can to further the scientific aspect of paranormal research.
And we do love that, don't we?
Yeah, that's the best part. When you can throw a little science in the mix, you throw a little bit less crazy in the mix, and that means people are more ready to believe you.
Yeah.
And so anyway, Mary's a lot of fun, and she goes through some details of her first paranormal experience, and I appreciate that because she's like, I don't like to talk about it. But then she really gave us a good, detailed explanation of what happened that got her interested in the first place.
Okay, great.
So I think we should go do it.
Let's hear it.
I'm here with Mary Marshall, the Paranormal MD. How you doing today, Mary?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you.
Fantastic. We're enjoying the summertime in the Midwest now, and you're in the Chicagoland area, right?
I am. I am in the northwest suburbs of Chicago.
Okay. And so you're probably a Bears fan, and I won't hold that against you.
I have one niece, she's an adult now, that just drives us nuts because she is a diehard Packers fan. And she just loves to sit and just create trouble during the games because, of course, all the rest of us are Bears fans.
Right. And so if you're not in the United States, we're talking about American football, and I know that has nothing to do with paranormal, but we just like to joke each other from the Wisconsin and Illinois sports rivalry. Because Chicago is so much bigger than anything in Wisconsin, we have to get them about something. Anyway, so thanks today for joining us, Mary. And, let's talk a little bit about the Paranormal MD. Describe a little bit about what you do for our audience.
What I do is I do investigative research. I do go out on investigations and work home cases and or businesses, but mostly now just due to time constraints, I am researching and doing teaching. I started one of the first paranormal studies programs in the country at one of my local colleges here. Since then, it's stemmed out, and I teach at 3 different colleges and a couple other institutions in different counties around the Chicagoland area.
Which colleges do you have the Paranormal Studies program?
Harper College in Palatine, Illinois, College of DuPage, and College of Lake County. I know I'm all over the place. I'm driving all over the place for these. But it's been great. I love connecting with people. I love being able to because I'm very science-minded, analytical about things.
Is that where the name the Paranormal MD? Because when I think Paranormal MD, I think of somebody who can deliver prescriptions and things like that. So I mean, I want my general practitioner to be the Paranormal MD.
The thing, it actually came about as far as the Paranormal MD is because at the time, which was 20 years ago, my married name started with the letter D, so it was Mary D, and I was poking fun at myself, the Paranormal Mary D,
Sure.
And so at that point, it just sort of stuck, and it went forth, and it really applied because of what I do and how I'm teaching it, teaching with the colleges and my approach to it, because I really encompass so many things that a lot of people talk about privately, but not publicly, meaning the sciences, whether it be physics, neurology, or cultural science, because they're all really applicable to the field and understanding ourselves and the phenomena. And so, that's kind of, where it came from, and it's just sort of stuck. And that's the name of my group, my organization, which is the Paranormal MD Investigations and Research website. And there's a lot of information on that website that may answer a lot of questions for people.
Okay. We'll have that linked at the show notes. OthersidePodcast.com/104 is where you can find the links to Mary Marshall and the Paranormal MD website and group and everything. But, it's awesome that you've been working with colleges, and I want to talk about your classes, and people are interested how they can take those classes and things. But, to get to that level where you can actually go to a school and say, hey guys, I got something for you. I think I have a cool paranormal class we can teach to your students. To get there, you have to have a certain amount of experience and have a bunch of respect in a field and a bunch of credentials. So I guess let's start with how you got into this stuff in the first place. Did you just like to watch That's Incredible and think, oh, those stories are great? Or did you, that's how I got into it. Or did you have an experience that happened to you that set you on this path?
I've had various experiences throughout my life. One of the first being a very, very negative one. One thing I do want to say at this point is, science-minded as I am, I'm equally metaphysical. So it's more of a parapsychology approach to things. And the reason I say that is because the first experience I had is what I would consider a demonic. I know people always want to hear the story, but I really don't like to talk about it a lot. But it scared the daylights out of me, but nonetheless made me very aware.
What age was this?
That was at 14.
Okay, so you're 14 and you had an experience. Was it like a Ouija board or something like that? Or, because everybody uses the Ouija board when they're 14.
You know what? No, it wasn't. I did that. Unfortunately, I did that much younger, but I did do it. And you try to tell everybody, don't do it if you don't know what you're doing. No, it was really, wow. It's so extreme in that there was the sulfur rotten egg smell. It was a bunch of unattended teenagers in a house where there was no parent anymore because the owner of the house was an only living relative of a friend, was a grandmother who had passed away.
That sounds like a setup for a horror movie here. A bunch of unattended teenagers, right. And we're in a house and all of a sudden, a dude with a mask shows up and a big knife.
It's kind of like that now without the mask and the knife. But there was, now looking back, obviously I have to take in consideration the perspective of a 14-year-old and how that's going to affect the memory. But in looking back at it with what I know now, there was probably oppression taking place on the girls whose home it was. And then, seriously, it was the most insane, crazy situation in that neighbors, she had no other living relatives, were just kind of helping. We packed up and were helping sell the house. It was just crazy.
And so she was another 14-year-old girl and had no family.
Correct. She essentially was legally adopted by a neighbor friend, so that things could go on. But in the house, what had happened is that there was a lower basement apartment and in this home, and being very familiar because it had been rented out at times, with the layout and how things are. I'm really going to try to condense this down. Long story short
anytime somebody says like they had a demonic experience, I'm gonna have to be like, come on now.
Well, at any rate, there was this rotten egg sulfur smell that started in the grandmother had lived in the basement, she stayed in the basement bedroom. And this is one of those where there was an outer basement, you go down and there's the washer, dryer, that type of thing. And then there was a door.
They call them mother-in-law suites now or
Correct.
Whatever, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a door that entered into that apartment. Here's where it got strange. The smell started in the bedroom. It grew out of that bedroom. It was so strong that it would knock you off your feet. But here's where it gets peculiar. You could literally stand 1 inch with nose up against that door, so to say, and it was an open doorway at this point. The door was open. You could stand on the outside of that apartment and not smell a thing. You step over that threshold and the smell would want to knock you over. It never came up the vents and it never came out that door.
So it's something in that room, confined to that room.
And eventually to that whole apartment area. So this is how that's something. It was just really weird. You could stand on the outside, nothing, take one step over, and it was so strong. I've never since then smelt anything like that. It stayed there all the time. It never came up the vents. And I know because of cooking and smoking smells and everything else that other smells did. It basically came down to a particular evening as I started to suspect something was going on.
So like something supernaturally, or like, a lot of times. Okay, because a lot of times when people are, there's no adults around, there's no family around, there's always weird abuse situations, or how things go.
Right. And you've got a bunch of kids that can feed off of each other, as far as imagination and hysteria and things like that. And that really wasn't going on because oddly, despite that, there wasn't a lot. There was just very private couple conversations going on with a couple people. But I did notice the behavior difference of this girl, the smell, and that feeling. There was just a very negative presence. People talk about those things. It culminated in me speaking with my brother, who's 7 years older than me, and was converting from being a Catholic to a Lutheran. And I mentioned that because he was very heavy into study at that point. So I went to him to talk to him about it. He agreed that something peculiar was going on. He gave me some suggestions of where to read, and I went to my friends to try to enlighten them, to, in a sense of we need to take this a little serious, kind of a thing.
You went to bring him some Jesus.
Yeah, to bring them to, yeah, exactly. Because most of these kids, again, were coming from one-parent households where, the parent was gone often. There wasn't any religious upbringing or much of one, and so forth. So at the point when I did that, again, condensing this down is it was like a scene out of a movie, in that when I at one point was talking to him when we're all in the living room and said I wanted, to read some things out of the Bible to them in reference to this all. The one of there's a front door and a screen door. Yeah. The one door flew open and the other one flew shut. Things started to fly off the coffee table, and obviously scaring the daylights.
Right. Okay. So you're just hanging out. You say like, okay, guys, I'm going to do a little Bible reading here because I think if this was a demonic presence, it might react to, or, a little bit of some Christianity might make it fly away or whatever and go away. And then it immediately starts reacting, slams the doors, throws things off the table, and everybody's crapping their pants at this point.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I'd be out the door.
Yeah, well, here's where the thing is that I was so determined. Now, and it was, I needed a Bible, and I asked for the Bible, and when I had also asked for the Bible at that time too.
Sure.
So at this point, when I find out, unfortunately, the Bible was in the basement apartment in the grandmother's bedroom above her bed.
Man, the Bible's in the demon room.
Yep. And I went down to get it. And I will tell you, since then, have never been so scared in my life. With all of the crazy things, that you see since then, I've never been that scared because this was so serious. And I knew it. Every fiber of my being could feel this. So I had to go down the stairs and I had to go into that apartment. And at points, I was almost paralyzed with fear. That where you just are so afraid that you are paralyzed. You feel like you can't move.
Well, you just saw something fly across the shelf. I get something falling off I'm like, oh, it's probably, it's not the cat. Well, the cat's on the other side of the room. Like, I don't want to go to that side of the room for a week.
Right. And the thing was, I knew it wasn't just a ghost. I knew this was demonic. And particularly the cue on this was that sulfur smell.
Right. That's what you always hear, that smell of rotten eggs.
Yeah.
And not just some dude playing a prank.
Exactly. So I did manage to get in there. I passed it, if that makes sense. In that I can tell you it was blacker than the black of shadow in the height.
So you saw a shadow person?
Out of the corner of my eye. And the reason I say this is because I'm so scared, and I'm trying to so focused. All I kept repeating in my head, so nothing else could get in, was the Lord's Prayer. So I was just over and over and over and over. So nothing else could get in my head.
That's like when people say they pray the rosary for protection, right? You say
Right.
you say a bunch of prayers in your head while you're fiddling with the rosary, and that's the meditative kind of protection experience mantra kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because you don't want anything negative getting in there, and if anything is getting in there, this is what they're confronted with.
That's pretty smart for 14 years old.
I found out it was.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like, later on, like, if you're thinking like, well, repeat this in your head so nothing negative can get in, and just a scared teenager. I think it's pretty good. So you made it past.
I got it. Went up, and then when we did that, and then there was some more disruption. There was some light flickering, but nothing more than that I can recall really did then happen.
But isn't that enough? Like, to me, I see something flying, that's enough. You've got that's I can see why that would set you on a path to be like, I need to learn more about this.
Well, actually what it did at that point is it kind of scared me away. Because I did then later have experiences, including psychic medium type experiences that I couldn't explain.
Okay.
But in fact, things that I would see or know or hear, not with the ears or the eyes, but somehow just it happened. I'm like, what's going on? And getting it validated, which really that even scared me back then, because I'm like, this is just all so weird.
Right.
It's like, okay, I was right about this. And here's why. Because religiously, how I was raised, Catholic and Lutheran, pretty much everything is demonic or a demonic trick.
Okay.
This even as ghosts. You don't know that's, grandma can't really come back and visit you, and so on and so forth. So I had a lot of fear. Nonetheless, in the background, though, I continued to search out material and study. But back then, there wasn't really much beyond metaphysical or spiritual type stuff. There wasn't a lot of anything hardcore as far as science and so forth being applied to it. Push forward, saw residual, your sometimes typical white fluorescent ghost, and it was a residual. Checked it out, knew it was nothing else that was going on. In fact, I was seeing this and a few other things through the years. And
so you had little experiences when you went to different places. Were they specifically haunted places that you went to on purpose, or was it just like you'd go somewhere and you'd be like, hey, do you see that dead person over there?
Well, I would happen to just be taking a weekend vacation with a friend. Yeah, it was not haunted, not intentionally going to haunted places, but nonetheless having these either, witnessing something at one point, and then another time having a dream in which I was apparently talking in my sleep, and I do not do this, scared the person I was with, and they were like, next morning, so how you feeling?
Right.
What did you dream about last night? And then tell me how I freaked him out. And I explained what the dream was, which had to do with the room that we were in. And it was one of the B&B type place. So it was a very old place up in Michigan, and I can't tell you where or what the name was.
Sure.
And when we went down for breakfast, we talked to the owners. And what it was is that it was how this room and the people that were in this house, and how the room had a doorway in a different place and this and that, and you couldn't tell any of this. And apparently it was like that. So they had reconstructed the second floor, and, unbeknownst to me, and where I had said there was a doorway and so forth,
right.
There was. So, things like that.
So you have this first experience when you're 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And as you grow older, so is this like the next 10 years? You are having weird experiences, next 5 years? Like, where are you in life when when these random things keep happening to you?
I would say then during, from that point of 14 forward through the 20s was just more, psychic medium type experiences, to be quite honest.
Well, casual things like like you said, you would have not necessarily premonitions, but you'd have flashes of insight into how a place was, that had nothing to do with your corporeal senses.
Right. And that particular one happened to be actually in a dream. The other ones were not dreams. They were just a sense of knowing or hearing, and again, it sounds crazy, and I don't talk about this a lot. The reason I don't is because I'm always so focused on the other aspects, the science part, and trying to relate of how phenomena is occurring. So at any rate, so during that point, then in the 30s is when I saw the residual ghost. And then I would say somewhere, trying to gauge this also. Like,
I'm just thinking about your growth into someone who's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to study this stuff. I'm going to create classes, create a curriculum based around it. So you have those experiences.
Yeah. So really where that all really started at a hardcore is at a certain point, I'm like, you know what? I need to get out there. I need to, enough of this book stuff. I need to get out there and, the field and test things out. I found a local group. I joined it. I actually then helped another group start up and was working with them for a while, but I didn't like what either of them were doing in that it was more of a hunt and there was a lot of belief but not a lot of analysis of things.
So what do you mean by a lot of belief? They'd go in and people would just say, "Oh, but it's cold in this room." Did they have a lot of equipment, or what were they measuring?
Yeah, at that time, equipment was still really very much borrowed from other fields. Electrician tools and things like that. So you had. I think when I started, they didn't even have like the obelisks and other different pieces of equipment they have now. That's really over the last 10 years of the development of all of that for the field, which is fabulous. But it was just a mindset. It was just an accepting, like you said, it's cold in here. Oh, it's a ghost. I'm sensing something. Oh, it's a ghost. There were things like that were, it was a given. There wasn't a skepticism and trying to figure out more other reasonable explanations. Furthermore, I found that people would tend to, and they still do, as a matter of fact, let's say they have a group of 5-6 people and they go out. If those 5-6 people can't find a reasonable explanation for some paranormal event that occurred, then they write it off as, well, it's paranormal.
Right, and 5 or 6 people is a pretty small sampling. Of the minds that could explain some kind of paranormal activity.
Exactly. Just because I don't know or you don't know doesn't mean there isn't an explanation. So you need to take it outside of. And I've had cases in which I was basically lied to by the curators or caretakers of this location to what the event had occurred. And it actually, I think it was Haunted America or Most Haunted or something, this is years ago.
One of the TV shows, right.
Yeah, was out there, excuse me, the week before, and it actually filmed. But they had all these records, but there was no record of this female, so on and so forth. So when I left there, not only through deeper questions to the caretaker was I convinced that this was not all true. Then I went to the fire department, my local fire department. The fire chief there was very kind. I drew out a map. This is what gold. This is what they said happened, because they were saying that this was an original burnt door from a fire where this girl was trapped and had died and is now a ghost there.
And this is a place local to Chicago?
It was
like a house or a bar, or what kind of place?
In another state.
Okay.
It was a house in another state. And at that point, I'm looking at this door and in the fire, and it's supposed to be in this room. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm no fire expert, but this just doesn't look like right. This doesn't seem the nature of how fire would move. So I went to the fire department. The fire chief, spoke with them. And
the fire chief did not kick you out.
No, he was actually really kind and listened.
He's like, what are you doing, you interloper? Get out of here. No, he didn't say anything.
Yeah, crazy woman. And in fact, it couldn't have happened that way. So the point being is that you need to go outside of yourself. Recently I've been working, and I don't mean to kind of segue out of this, but
no, you can stay where you want to go.
I've been working a case with Jay Pachochin of WPI Hunts the Truth.
And you guys out there in paranormal land, in the listenership, you guys know Jay Pachochin because he's been on our cryptozoology roundtable. He was with us when we discussed the smiley face killers in La Crosse, Wisconsin as well. Oh, and we talked about it with him at the Chicago Paranormal Conference too. So
yeah,
we'll link to that because you guys know you've heard Jay before. The listeners on the show have. So...
Yeah, so I've been friends with Jay, and basically it had started where one day I was like, he'd been going out into the kettle at Kettle Moraine in Wisconsin.
And that's, we discussed the Kettle Moraine in depth with our interview with Linda Godfrey episode as well. So if you guys want to know more about the Kettle Moraine, it's a good place to go to because she lives right outside the edge of it.
It's a fascinating and interesting place. If you go into certain areas, we happened upon, I initially started, like I was going to say, is that I'm just going to go out with my friend and see what he's up to.
And Jay is a big Bigfoot hunter. And so,
yes.
I mean, this is a little different now. So in the paranormal stuff, we talked about demons, we talked about ghost experiences and psychic experiences. And now, I mean, cryptozoology and Bigfoot hunters are something completely different. So are you the kind of person who believed in Bigfoot beforehand?
No.
Okay.
Not really. And I will tell you, it's been a journey because what happened is I started, and the first time out, I had no equipment, didn't anticipate anything to happen.
Right. I've been out to the Kettle Moraine 100 times, and I've no Bigfoot over here.
Right. My first time out, what happened was quite interesting. And that hooked me. And then then Jay and I just started going out, and it just sort of became a partnership because we started doing some very intensive research and experiments there. So when my first time out, both of us had witnessed what we now refer to as the wall of lights. It was probably, I'm trying to think, 150 feet area covering kind of in front of us and to the side, tree line, if you will. We're standing on a path.
What time of day was it?
This was at nighttime, and I want to point out that this was during the super blood moon, which means it was very bright. You could literally read a book out there.
This is in the summer, or was it in the fall? What time of year?
It was fall.
Okay, so fall, nighttime, Kettle Moraine. If you guys want to picture the Kettle Moraine, it's just a wooded area, hilly, not mountainy because it's Wisconsin, but it's plenty hilly, pretty deep wooded area, state park kind of deal. So there's not a ton of roads around. There's not a ton of houses. It's kind of just a park, and it's middle of nowhere-ish.
It's the Kettle Moraine, and I may be off on this, but I think it's something like 45,000 acres.
Yeah, it's huge.
Isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
it keeps extending all the way, north, south, east, So when we're out there, all of a sudden we're standing and we get this pulse, kind of a pulse flash of light. And I'm going to explain it this way in that these lights would be at no particular pattern, might be a flash, and then wait a little bit, or it could be a flash, or one, was no particular pattern. We're 4 to 10 feet in diameter, irregular shaped, diffused white light.
Okay.
This is pretty astounding. And so...
I have no idea what this is.
Right. And it's like we're deep in the woods, and there's no explanation for this. I'm like, come on. So it was kind of freaky. At one point, because I didn't have any equipment, I started walking forward with my hand out, and Jay's like, what, you think you're going to get like sucked back to 1955? And I'm like, I don't know, it could happen,
Right.
But I was trying to see if I could even feel a static or something, if there was like a wall of static. And I didn't feel anything. At a certain point, now we're standing watching it. There's just zero explanation because, again, we're deep in the woods. It's not planes. It's not car headlights, so forth. There's no one, it's not coming from any particular place, and it's occurring over a large area and in different places, anywhere from 6 feet off the ground to the top of the tree lines, by the way.
Okay.
So eventually we just literally, it's still going on, walk away and out of this area, not too far. And again, I'm guessing at this point, but I'm thinking maybe 50 yards past. I hear, now Jay was talking, so he did not hear this or hear this as clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard something large in that sense of that shuffle moving up on you on the path, coming up. And I thought it was going to be like a wolf or some type of animal.
Now you're coming from the other direction. So the light's behind you now.
Correct.
So you're walking away from the light. Now, it's still pretty bright out there because of the blood moon and the mystery wall of lights.
Right.
And up ahead of you. So is there a path in the woods, or are you guys off a path?
No, at this point we were on path.
Okay.
And so I stopped abruptly, turned around, and backed up because like I said, I was convinced it was going to be some large animal, and nothing was there. And again, super blood moon, very light, very clear to see. Not any guessing about it. There was nothing there. When I turned, as I'm making my own shuffling noises, so to say, Jay says that he heard what he would describe as a grunt type breath.
Okay, so you heard movement. Jay hears a grunt.
And nothing's there. Needless to say, this hooked me, and I was now coming back. And so we unintentionally started, someone had come out and asked to film us, and they wanted to do a short documentary.
Okay.
And what was supposed to be a 15-20 minutes turned into a full-blown documentary in which they followed us for a year. So every season, all the way through to basically where we started in time, in season-wise, and followed us along and to any experiments that we did, any experiences that we had, whether it had been, rock throwing or discovering, structures and things like this. I am a big skeptic still.
Right, because first of all, when you think about what Bigfoot could be realistically, you're like, okay, well, if you think, all right, I believe that there's definitely a chance that there's creatures that we have not seen yet, that we have not discovered yet, that are just a little bit, they're just really hidden. Maybe there's only a few of them. You can imagine that, but they don't usually have a big wall of lights like a Cubs game or something like that out there.
Well, that's the thing. There's various types of phenomena occurring out there. In the process of this year, I also collected an EVP. We have run some experiments in regard to Native American, we've run experiments as far as trying to either contact or initiate any type of contact with Bigfoot, with whatever. See, here's the thing. What I liked about this is that Jay had his experience and his knowledge in the Bigfoot Sasquatch arena, so to say.
Yes.
I did not. So I was coming into this rather cold. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, I came and I did not go to the blogs. I am not researching because I wanted my own approach, and I wanted a more scientific, if you will, approach to this.
Sure.
As Jay will say, he says Bigfoot, I say bunny rabbit. It's whatever, whatever happens, I have some, and here's what's happened. We discovered over this year too, by the way, of how we relate to each other in both a humorous way and an analytical way. Mm-hmm. I say, think X-Files, Mulder and Scully, a dollar version of a Mulder and Scully on a dime store budget.
Right.
That's us. So I'm always coming up with some reasonable explanation for things and researching that. Here's the thing I do want to point out, and a lot of what this documentary is going to cover is some real explanations, because that's what I'm after in this field. I'm after that and after the root cause, because whether it be Bigfoot or a ghost or shadow people or a UFO, it's all about now you see it, now you don't, kind of phenomena. So what's at root cause of a lot of this? And some of it can go to theories on wormholes and singularity and how that information, or the Heisenberg, and I'm not going to get into bore everybody with the explanations, but the Heisenberg on, certainty principle and so forth and so on. But you can come up with the theories of, I don't know what, see, here's the thing. I don't agree necessarily with what a Bigfoot is. For me, it's still, the verdict is still out.
Sure.
Is Bigfoot an interdimensional being? We know through science multiple dimensions exist. So is it possible? I mean, these are all the crazy different theories that we've gone through.
That Bigfoot's walking through a portal or something like, hey, everybody, just...
Maybe Bigfoot is us. Maybe aliens are us. Now, what I mean by that is, if there is portals in time, if there are loops in which tears in the fabric of time, if you will, which I will tell you a little bit about that. You have a Cro-Magnon walking through the woods, doing his whole own thing, right. And boom, for 10 seconds, he's in our realm, in our dimension. You've got aliens that very possibly could be us in the year, 4035 or something. In that, if we continue on a path of where we are with our transhumanism type approach and bionics, sure. But also through our brain capacity, we would lose we would need, like we don't need our appendix now over evolution. Our bodies would get very lithe, like aliens, and the communication could be telepathic.
Well, that'd be totally sweet too.
So oddly, this could be us. But here's the thing, it could be us in other ways too. There's things that sound like science fiction, but people don't realize is a reality now. Experiments are being done at universities across this globe that are playing around with cloaking, not only invisibility cloaks or illusion cloaks.
Okay.
Now physicists have found ways to create a cloak that can hide events in time. And there's this gravitational lensing, bending light.
I'm gonna have to link to that. Where have you read about that? Like, well, I have. That sounds awesome and crazy. Not crazy in the crazy way, but like, where exactly did you read about that?
Well, this is some of what I do as far as putting theories together by pulling from sources and applying it, connecting the dots and applying it for paranormal phenomena. Cornell University in Ithaca is one of the ones that is doing, so they can look up that, have created a hole in time using the temporal equivalent of an invisibility cloak.
So like everybody would forget about it? So like in Doctor Who, everybody falls through the cracks in time or whatever, or events, No,
it doesn't work like that. The invisibility cloak works on, they've been able to manipulate electromagnetic frequencies in extreme ways. And what they do is that time cloaking is possible because of a kind of duality between space and time in electromagnetic theory. So the temporal cloak is placing like two, and this is including gravitational lensing, placing two time lenses in a series, and then they send a beam of light through it. The first compresses the light while the second decompresses it. And essentially what this does is it leaves a gap or a hole in which no events are recorded. So if you're the observer, if you're observing the light coming out of the second lens, mm-hmm. It's going to appear undistorted and as if no event has occurred. So if right now, this can only be done for, and this is very short time, but for 120th nanosecond. That's how short. I mean, it's not even a blink.
Sure.
But it can be done. However, what is our capabilities of this in 300 years or a millennia from now?
Right.
And what would that mean for us in the here and now? So is it possible that we ourselves have advanced to such a point in creating things like time cloaking and working on so many other types of experimental things that we are creating an effect, and I want to say an illusion because it's just a distortion, like a gravitational field distortion that allows us to witness these things now, witness things in other dimensions and possibly other universes.
And I like that too, because that could be a reason why all this stuff happens in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
The reason that it happens in the middle of nowhere is they thought that they could do the experiment there. We're doing the experiment out because there's nobody out here. And then there's some poor jerk is out there like, hey, what's going on? Oh my God, it's Bigfoot. And he's all of a sudden he's being carried off through the vortex.
Yeah, and the randomness in some ways too can just be a part of a ripple effect from these types of events occurring in the future. Because here's where it gets strange, and everybody's like, well, that's crazy because it's in the future. Well, to understand that, there have been other experiments conducted by this Yakir at Tel Aviv University in Israel, that indicate that not only the past makes up our present, but the future also makes up the present. Again, they have done experiments. This is not science fiction. They have done experiments. And basically at the heart of this idea is something called non-locality. What it's basically starting to deal with is quantum entanglement. That you have...
What does non-locality mean?
Well, here's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You have the two particles that exist in an interrelated or entangled state that remain undetermined or superposition until they're either observed or a measurement, observed and a measurement is made of them. When that happens, now the other particle, no matter how far away it is, including dimensionally, is in a fixed position too. Einstein actually talked about this. I think action at a distance, he called it.
Spooky action at a distance, right?
No, that was, it's a little bit different. Yeah, but yeah, exactly, in 1935. And so, so is it possible that in a timeline beyond our current, in other words, in our future, that we ourselves are creating the phenomena that we're bearing witness to?
Well, I like that too, because it unifies the theories in a lot of ways. Because if you say that between Bigfoot and aliens and ghosts, and I talked to Jay before off air, he's talked about his theory on ghosts as time travelers or slipping through the dimension kind of thing. Getting a glimpse, like when you're really seeing a ghost, you're not actually seeing the spirit of something, but you are seeing a crack in time, a crack in the fabric of time.
For like residual.
Yes.
That would, so that's a lot of time with the residual. You're at a very fixed point. There's an entire world and universe going on, just like ours that we're sitting in right now. But there's a particular juncture, if you will, in that you're seeing, September 3rd, 1933 at 3 p.m. And that's all you're seeing. So it's going to play itself out like a loop because that's all you're seeing. But if we could have gotten past that or, broaden that, there's a whole real life events just like we have going on. We're just not privy to seeing it. So it would play itself out like a loop. The interesting thing, going back to these lights, I was obsessed with studying this because there's other things. Jay had also witnessing something that looked like red eyes out there in other types of lights.
I've heard about the red eyes thing before. A lot of time that comes with, dogmen. Or,
right.
Or as Linda Godfrey calls them, the upright walking canines. And people will say, even when you talk about the Kettle Moraine's right by Bray Road. The beast of Bray Road has, those red eyes. And so Jay's had experienced that?
Yeah, he's experienced that, and he's experienced rock throwing and so on and so forth. You'll have to have him on the show again so he can talk about that stuff.
Right.
And so, when I was looking at this, and I'm like, all right, there's a lot of, there's got to be reasons for this.
Right.
We got to start. So I started a lot of things connecting. Again, first I'm looking at the let's look at the geological makeup of the area. Let's look up at then combining that with the atmosphere, combining that with other causes that may cause this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
For things like the smaller lights, the red lights and stuff they can see, I personally, as much as it may be a bizarre experience and certainly still could be some other type of phenomena, a lot of it I think is due to decaying of organic matter.
Okay, so like, is there a glow to organic matter decaying?
What happens is decaying organic matter produces like methane gases, and they can fluoresce under certain lighting conditions, and that includes even no clouds, half moon to full moon.
Is that the J. Allen Hynek when he talks about swamp gas?
That's part of it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in the swamp gas, but it doesn't have to be, see, the earth itself emits these gases. It doesn't have, so... And that can produce green, blue, red, or white light. In addition, it can tend to be set off by a chemical reaction. The chemical reaction can be set off by nipping at it, insects nipping at it. Then you have fungi that can react the same way and can become illuminated. And it's basically a process of, a lot of this can be due to chemoluminescence, bioluminescence. I'm not going to say it all is, but certainly a significant, if not most, of the light.
I've been to the bioluminescent bays in Puerto Rico a couple times where you go in and they have the tiny, not just tiny creatures, but microscopic creatures that when you put your hand through the water, it looks like you're drawing with a light bright or something like that. Like it really
and
is.
It's probably bizarre, right?
It's super bizarre. Like if I didn't have a explanation of, okay, there's, these tiny creatures living in the water that get illuminated when they, get activated and stuff, you would think that it was magic.
Yeah. I mean, it's just bizarre. And then there's other types that science is just beginning to study, considering a real occurrence. Real type of phenomenon, which has to do with ball lightning or earthquake lights, thunder lightning.
I think it's interesting when you talked about, we're talking about methane gas and illumination.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the smell of methane, going back to the around demonic experiences that people have, or, when they have, they sense something evil, and you yourself talked about that smell of sulfur, that rotten, decaying something smell connected with supernatural activity. It almost makes me think like, well, is methane a conductor for supernatural activity? I mean, it's a conductor for supernaturally clearing a room. But could that gas have something to do with making the situation right, or making the atmosphere right for something weird about to happen?
Well, most of this, too, is going to apply outdoor due to the strength. However, things like ball lightning can occur indoor. I've experienced that, and it was extremely bizarre. It's the only thing I can describe it as, and this was years ago. My daughter, who was a child at the time, she and I were talking in the kitchen, and she had her back against the outside window. So I'm facing her. This
is in the Midwest.
This is in the Midwest.
Okay, because a lot of times when you hear about ball lightning, you think of something happening in the desert or, in the middle of the Dust Bowl in Oklahoma.
And it was indoors, which is very random and unusual, but it does occur. And at the time, I mean, up until recently, I had really all these years had no clue for sure what I probably had experienced. Mm-hmm. And it was a huge, huge bright light, almost carrying I don't want to say a thunderous sound, but a crack pop, deep to it.
Okay.
In that it happened between my daughter and I. We lost sight of each other.
Was this during a storm or something?
No.
I mean, so this was just during the day, during the night, like what?
So this happened between us. Now afterwards, I went and checked everything from the light bulb in the stove to the transformers at the corner to see if anything had changed.
Right.
The weather was fine. I never did find a cause for it. But it was probably one of these random experiences that science is now studying, which is called ball lightning. Now, ball lightning is a little bit different. That has, it's a plasma ball type thing.
Mm-hmm.
The geological makeup can have something to do with it, particularly when you're outdoors, because the ground can be magnetically charged depending upon what's underneath you. And there's it could be due to the tectonic plates, in a sense, rub. If you have an area like the Kettle, which is very high in silica sand, quartz,
okay,
you can have electrical discharges occur. So you mix these electrical discharges with the emission of gases coming from the ground, depending upon gravitational pull at the time and the atmospheric gases of nitrogen, you can cause some light phenomena.
The Kettle too was developed over, during the Ice Age and the
glacier.
From the it's all stuff from the glacier, leaving the deposit in there too. So it's a weird mix of geology.
Yeah, it's a weird mix, and that's where you have to take all of these things and put them together. So you've got quartz-bearing rocks that can produce voltages when compressed, and we know this. This is not, combining it with gases and atmospheric conditions, and things can happen. It doesn't make it any less strange or bizarre when you see it, but nonetheless, it does have a lot of it could have a very good explanation, reasonable explanation. With this being said, I do want to note that over the last couple years in particular,
mm-hmm.
there has been an increase in these sightings, particularly because you have a lot of the Bigfoot people who are out there a lot in the field. So they're out there consistently that are witnessing this much, much more than they ever have before. All different types of light phenomena.
So phenomena in the Bigfoot hunt is on the rise. Well, that's exciting.
So, yeah, you think about the light phenomena. Why is there an increase? What's going on? Does it have to do with, again, our man-made being responsible? Experiments from the Hadron Collider at CERN to Fermilab to HARP to other experiments to all the electromagnetic fields that were thrown out there in equipment and experiments and so forth. I don't know. There's been an increase, and I suspect it's probably increased due for man-made reasons of one kind or another. So there's a lot, there's a lot of this type of stuff going on there. And we've had scary experiences that you can't explain and bizarre. So it's been a really interesting journey for me personally, because I found a lot of things. I was coming to a lot of the same conclusions as some others in, in the field.
Okay.
In the Bigfoot field. But also I've been able to lend to those experiences of mine and others a little more science, a little more scientific perspective on what may be causing some of this. Again, not denying that people see. Here's the thing: whether again it's Bigfoot or ghosts or UFOs, people are seeing and experiencing something.
Right.
They all can't be crazy. They all can't be misidentifications. Even if I were to, sort through it all and in the end we find that only 10% is truly unexplainable, well, that's 10%. And that's what we're after.
Well, as long as anything's unexplainable. That's what I always think, is that a lot of the researchers out there, they put up with hoaxes and stuff that's BS and everything, because when you finally get the smoking gun, then you've got the smoking gun. And it doesn't, if you have something irrefutable, something that you really can't explain, or something when you do find an explanation is of a paranormal variety, that's all you need, because if you just rely on people's testimony and even eyewitness research and everything, you're never going to convince everybody. So
Right.
I think a lot of people put up with things that are hoaxes or, stuff that they can't prove, and just in that journey to finally get that final piece of evidence that no one else can refute.
Yeah, I think so. And because I do have done so many years and so much work more in the ghost haunting, shadow person, demonic, whatever, that realm versus the other, it does all tie in. And there's other things that apply to all these fields which have to do with us personally. And that's where the neurology comes in. What is it that you're seeing? Our brains are the faultiest thing you could ever imagine.
Oh, yeah.
It will literally lie to us and make up facts to make things make sense.
I know. How do you think I get up in the morning?
Exactly, right? My life is wonderful and it's going to be a great day.
Right. It's all a big lie.
But, so whether it be, something called, the McGurk effect, which is, which your eyes and your ears are hearing, and they tend to not sync, and they could change it to motion induced blindness and so on and so forth. It's insane how faulty we are. So this is why it's really, really important to use equipment outside of ourselves.
Sure.
To try to document and capture what may be considered evidence. But I personally feel it is equally, if not more so important at this point in time, to look at the causes. How is this happening? Because that's where where you're going to find the connections to this all.
Well, and I think that's where we all want to go with it too, because if you hear EVPs or you're experiencing something, you see crazy lights, or maybe you end up seeing Bigfoot, or he throws a rock at the window of your cabin or something, or you see a UFO. The idea is like, okay, now, if you see it, you believe it. And so the idea is like, okay, UFOs exist. Why do you know? Because I've seen something. The next part is getting past are they all hallucinations, or are they real, to, okay, something is there. What exactly is it? Is it a government experiment? Is it extraterrestrial? Is a ghost just a recording that's in the ground? Or is it an intelligent, after death spirit kind of thing? And I think that's the fun part, where now that we've had a lot of these ghost TV shows, and a lot more people are experiencing EVPs and seeing crazy things, getting to the root cause is exactly, I think, where we want to go with this. So
I do agree. I absolutely agree. It's just, we need to look at things multiple dimensions, wormholes, time cloaking, human perceptions.
Absolutely.
Our system functionality. And this is going to relate to everything from psychic phenomena to alien, UFOs, creatures, cryptids, creature sightings, and ghost entities.
And I'm excited to watch this new DVD and see you guys try to do it in the Kettle Moraine.
I know I'm excited about it. To be honest, I have not seen the final product. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this is all turned out.
What's it called?
Someone else. It is called Into the Woods, a case study of the Wisconsin Sasquatch and other phenomenon. And it should be coming out in September this year.
All right. So coming out next month, and people are going to be able to find that on theparanormalmd.com. You can have a link right there.
Right. I'll have it at theparanormalmd.com. I'll also have it at theparanormalmdradio.com, because I do a podcast also. I'm sure it's going to be at Jay's website, which is wpihuntsTheTruth.com. And after that, we'll see if we can, get it Amazon. We're not sure. I'm not really sure yet, but
Fantastic.
I know that it's coming out. And we're going to be speaking at, I'm going to be speaking at Ashmore Estates in the beginning of September for their 100th birthday. That's going to be a fantastic event. Jay and I are also going to be at doing a combined presentation on this cattle case at Dark Shores, Chicago Dark Shores Con in October.
Oh, that'll be fun. We already have tickets to it. So
oh, great. Awesome. Yeah, we're doing it together, and we're looking forward to that. And then we're not doing anything together, because I'm actually going to be doing, because it was already in the works. I'm speaking at the Milwaukee Ghost Paranormal Conference on paranormal. It's a thing called Paranormal Entanglement, but it really talks a lot about what I'm talking about here, the root cause of phenomenon, and doing a workshop. And Jay is on a panel, probably, I'm sure it has to do with cryptids type panel at the Milwaukee conference.
We'll be there too. I'm sure we'll be seeing you a lot in the near future, Mary.
Yes, you will.
Fantastic. So make sure you guys out there, you can find all the links to the show notes, othersidepodcast.com/104, and you can learn a ton more about Mary Marshall, the Paranormal MD radio show, and her classes and things. And we're going to have you back on to talk about more about how you got the colleges doing this stuff and the different stuff that you guys talk about in your classes. And that'll be a lot of fun too. So thank you very much for joining us today, Mary.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we'll be talking to Mary again, probably at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference,
which is coming up pretty soon, actually.
Yep, October 15th and 16th is going to be the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. We'll put a link to it in the show notes and everything like that, because we will be there interviewing Karina from Paranormal Lockdown.
Cool.
And so we're going to be facilitating the Q&A for the keynote at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference this year.
So exciting.
Yes, that is exciting. And we're also going to be performing as a band some of the songs that we do in the podcast.
Hey.
That's right. You'll be able to hear some Sunspot acoustic tunes that night. And we're really excited about the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, and that's we'll be seeing more of Mary Marshall. And of course, when you want to learn more about the Paranormal MD, find out about the Into the Woods DVD that she did with our man Jay from WPI Hunts the Truth, or listen to her radio show, you can find that in our show notes at othersidepodcast.com/104.
That's right.
So for this week's song, we were thinking about something that Mary talked about in her first experience, was that the smell of sulfur.
Ew.
Right. Was that she had that strong sense of sulfur when she went into that basement room. And that's always associated with demonic activity, with weirdness. You know, another word for sulfur in the Bible is brimstone. So when people talk about fire and brimstone as a metaphor for God's wrath and being burnt, they're talking about sulfur. So it's not just rotten eggs, it's also the devil.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the name of this week's Sunspot song, Sulfur.
It was the
thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
Can I borrow the car?